All right, so I'm back, and I'm now going to spend about another 30 minutes on this one. I think bringing it up to a bit of a crescendo, and so we'll get into doing some finessed edge work first, just to kind of start bringing up the perimeter shapes. And I put in the dark background obviously during break, and now I can work my edges more delicately that butt up against it. Right now it looks kind of cut out because we just put that dark right up to it. So now I need to go back with a finesse brush and do a little bit of delicate work along the contour, helping to create that lost and found edge, a look that we're going for. So it's good stuff. I'm just plugging along. Going down along the spiniest process, down the deep furrow of the spine, creating a really dark along there, deep into that furrow. Then I go back and I want to re-accentuate some of the core, which we softened earlier and lost some of the value. Whenever you soften like that, you bring some of the light into the dark and some of the dark into light. So the dark gets lighter and the lights get darker. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes you got to go back and readjust it back up again to get the kicker back, like I just did. And that's pretty common. I mean, that's just a common issue that happens when you start the process. Like in here, I've lost my core, and so now I got to go back in. Now when I put this in, it's going to be too dark and it's going to be too hard, and therefore I have to go back and blend again. But this time I'll blend a little more carefully, and I'll be closer to what I would be considered a stronger than it was when I went in and did that. And so it's cool to watch. I mean, tear it up, build it, build it up, tear it down, build it up, tear it down. That's the way painting works. To me, it's a tear down, build up process, and it's what usually happens somewhere in that tear down and build up is you lose sight of the finish, or you just burn out of that, and ultimately call it quits, or you tap out, so to speak. And that's okay. I mean, everyone's going to tap out at different periods. As you build your resolve through more efforts and more solid efforts, you'll be able to paint for longer periods of time without tapping out, thus getting a higher level of finish and being able to take your paintings further and further. And that's the natural way that we get better. And in order to do that, we really have to build up to that. And so that's what we're doing right now. Every one of these exercises is strengthening your resolve, strengthening your ability to work for longer hours. Your concentration level's getting better. So even if you didn't, maybe it doesn't come out as great as you thought it was going to or you wanted it to, well, that's usually the case. Still, the amazing amount of growth that's occurred just by attempting to do it cannot be underestimated. Right? Yeah, very, very Houston-ish tonight. I don't know why I'm channeling him, but I do like him. I haven't looked at his work in quite some time. So sometimes your painting will just take on a look, and the look will start to remind you of a look you've seen before. And I'm going to jump over here. And when that happens, like I said, I have a strong recall and a strong emulation ability. I'll just start painting like somebody because it'll start reminding me of somebody, maybe even subconsciously. And next thing you know, it's looking like a Steve Houston. Really funny how my mind works that way. But like I said, it's great for training, hard for becoming yourself. But we all have our crosses to bear, and we all have to just figure that stuff out on our own. And we can't normally just expect to be the painter that we're supposed to be just magically. We have to work up to that. We have to build that. We have to become that. We have to earn that. So that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing as I'm speaking to you right now, doing these demos. I'm getting better, becoming more me. Someday, I doubt I'll ever make it. I mean, you kind of hope you don't. I mean, if you asked any of the great artists throughout history on their deathbed, they probably say, yeah, I want another 20 years, or I'm almost, I need more time. I need more time. I'm sure not all of them were like, yeah, I made it, man. I'm just there and everything's awesome. I doubt many of them felt like that. We're always wanting to grow. We're always wanting to get better. That's a great thing about studying and learning and being an avid learner, a lifelong learner. You can always dump yourself into some new hobby, some new thing that keeps you growing and keeps you, some of the people that are so young at heart when they're old, it's because they never stop learning. those are the people I remember having people in my class and they're like 80, 82, 83, and it's amazing. You just go, wow, kudos to you for coming in and grinding it out at a late in life, and that's really just really neat to see. I hope I'm one of those kind of people. I think I will be, pretty sure. Yep, just, I'm going in and finding my cores again. I lost a lot of my shadows as I was blending down in these dark areas, and I'd like to try to get them back a little bit more, and in doing so, I need to kind of, I have a really good brush working for me here. It's one of those small flats I was talking about earlier, and it's dumping off the paint really nice on this surface, and it seems easy to manipulate. So I'll be using that until it doesn't do that for me, or it stops doing that, and it seems really nice right now, so. Not going to fight it, not going to ask questions. The paint's working for you and the brushes are working for you, just be thankful. How far you want to push your cores is really up to you. I like core manipulation, but I can get sometimes a little carried away with it, so I have to be careful. You're not always going to see it on the model very easily. In photos, sometimes you'll pick up it on a little easier, especially on these casts because they're white plaster, and they seem to get reflected light, kicked it back into them really easy. And as a result, you end up with really strong cores. On a human, with flesh colored, the light doesn't reflect off as much, it doesn't bounce as much. So it's a little harder to see cores like that. You end up having to invent them more. But by working from cast, you can start to kind of get a better sense of how the core shadows manipulate along the form. And therefore, you can probably inject it more believably into an actual live model situation. So that's one argument for doing a lot of cast drawings as well and paintings, is that helps you to understand the value of reflected light and how to manipulate it and how to get used to controlling it without sacrificing, over manipulating it, under manipulating it, whatever the case may be. Down in here, again, get that core back. Looking at my photo reference more than I'm looking at the actual model in front of me, because the actual cast in front of me is so washed out in this area that it's just not very powerful at all. Now we have a cast shadow that comes right in through here that got lost. And so I'm going to draw that back in, but I can't draw it in with a line. Well, you could, but I want to kind of go back in and basically soften on that one side so that all's left is a really hard edge. So I might have to come in from the light side too and reaffirm that edge. I might as well do that right now just to show you what I'm talking about, because you may not have picked up really on what I was trying to get at there. So I go back in, I clean my brush out, I spin it, I get it loaded up with a nice light blue, gray, and I come back in and I try to, ooh, that's too light, whoa. I like the idea of it, but that was a little too much. So you make a mistake like that, again, you just go back, you darken up, you pick up a little darker tone and you pull that right up. See now, as I kiss right up against this line, look at how hard it is now. And then I just pull away from it so that I can leave it really crisp like that. Now, do I want to leave it entirely crisp, that crisp? Maybe, maybe not. But for now, it suffices really strong as a cast shadow, which is what I read on my reference. And so I'm going to kind of let that ride for a little while. When I say let it ride, don't do anything with it. Just let it sit and see how it plays out as we get a little further into the painting. Sometimes you got to put something down and again, let it ride. Back up here along the spine, I just noticed that sometimes, I'll be here and I catch that. And I look at the reference, oh, it's really bright along there. I don't have that in there. And so rather than, I just go and kind of deal with it, because I know that I might forget or I may not see that again for a while or something. So that's why you see me jump around a lot. I know it's a little hard to handle. I'm going to go back down into here and try to continue on what I was kind of working on. I was working on the edges here, and then I caught that one and fixed it. Now I'm going to go this lower leg here. It's a little bit it hasn't gotten a lot of love, so I need to give it some love. I need to come down here and give it some TLC here. Okay, so what I want to do is grab a blender brush. That little guy's great, but he's just working really hard to try to do some of this stuff, and I think a little bit softer, bigger brush might help to blend some of these edges a little quicker, a little more efficiently. And I just feel like it was struggling to do that. And that's when you want to start thinking about moving to another brush or something. And again, ask yourself what you're going to do. Oh, I'm going to go blend this core shadow along the quad. Well, that little tiny brush I was using would have really been kind of hard to do that with. So I switch over to this. It feels a little bit better. I'll use that to clean up some of this area a little bit. I don't want to take out all my brush strokes, but I think I want to kind of use it to blend a little bit of them. This is a big ball bat blender brush, man. This thing it's not huge, but it's in the context of what we've been using, it's pretty big. Got to be careful when I come in here to do this wild blending, because I'm going to lose. I can mess up a lot of stuff. I mean, you can really do some damage. You can do a lot of good too, but you're going to end up tearing it down a lot, and then you're going to maybe have to bring it back up again. Not a big deal. It's what we've been doing, what we do as painters. We tear down, we build up. We tear down, we build up. Somewhere in there, we run out of time and we call it quits, or we run out of patience, or something runs out, and then we just it is what it is. That at that point, we've taken that painting as far as we could handle taking it under the circumstances of that particular situation, whatever it might have been. You might have just said, well, that's all I have today, man. I'm just fried. I just can't do anymore. Doesn't mean it's indicative of every day is going to be that way. Maybe you can take it further on a different day. But it is what it is. So we want to acknowledge that. We want to respect it. And not a lot of people always say, oh, I think I'm going backwards. I think I'm getting worse. You can't really go backwards if you're training properly. You can head trip. You can get inside your head a little bit and blow the flow because you're freaking out. But that's a psychological thing. That's not you're getting worse. That's you can't get outside of your head. So it's looking like you're getting worse, or you're perceiving. Or another thing that can happen is your ability can jump forward. Your eye can jump forward, but your hand hasn't caught up yet. And that can feel like you're getting worse because all of a sudden you can see better. And with that clarity, now nothing looks good anymore. So we've all been there where it's like, man, I thought I was doing pretty good. Now all of a sudden I think everything sucks that I do. And it's mostly just your eye just made a jump, and now your hand has to catch up. And for many years, when you're training in the beginning, your eye and hand are going to be trying to catch up to each other. Your eye is going to be progressing faster than your hand, usually. And your hand's going to be struggling to try to catch up to the eye's ability to see things. You'll watch me demo, and you'll say, I understand it when I watch it. It looks so easy, and I go do it, and my hand just won't give me what I want it to give me. You just haven't caught up yet. You'll get there. The main thing is you got to see it, understand it, and then try it. And ultimately, cut your hand some slack. It's hard. You're asking it to do a lot. Don't beat up on it and get mad at it. It's trying to do the best it can. You just got to, work with it and be patient. Okay. Get those little cast shadows underneath the rear there. Then I'll have to do a little bit of blending on the top because it got a little much. It's a little too sharp along there. I like the general effect of it, but needs some finesse. So I just pulled this line right out, and then I'll clean it up from that end. And that's just a little play of the oblique muscle from behind. And then we've got that little sliver of light, which has been poorly indicated by myself, or just has been left poorly. This little triangular light shape right in here. We need to fight to get that back a little bit. Like that. That's better. Seemed like a little tiny thing, and it was a tiny thing. But now, okay, now look. This edge right here needs to be finessed. Can be sharp underneath, but it needs to be soft on top. Now that looks so much better. Those are the little subtle edges we got to fight for. We got to fight hard for those because those are what make the paintings really sing. That's the subtle edge manipulation. And the difference between a good painting and a great painting, not much. It's just the ability to manipulate edges on a finite level and having the patience to do that and the understanding to do it. So understanding, patience, and then actually following through and doing it. That's what we were looking for. Up here around the head, I just was thinking about how I haven't really done much on that hair or up there, and the back's looking so good. Probably want to kind of come up here and see if we can start to just kind of soften some of these edges, not all of them, but around some of these forms so that it looks a little softer. Right now it looks very cut out, and that's good. That's where it should be, but not long term. That's just a placeholder. Now you go through and you search. You search for, we know that as form rolls, it's soft on top, hard underneath, soft on top, hard underneath, as we go in and out of these peaks and valleys. So, you know, like along this edge, we need to soften here. That stays hard along there, but on the top, it goes soft. Then it goes hard right along there, but then on the top, it has to soften. Now, not equally soft everywhere, like we want variation. From, you know, now it's hard underneath, soft on top. Hard underneath, soft on top. Soft on top, hard underneath. So on and so forth, around every one of those little edges. And that's what's going to give us that rolling believability. Now, once we do this, we've knocked down a lot of our values in there, and we need to get some kickers back in there, some of those little light pops. But let's just continue seeing wherever we can do that hard, soft thing to get, and then we might have, you know, sometimes we're going to mess up a little bit and spin through something and have to go back and kind of sharpen up an underneath form or something. But that's the basic gist of that. And you know, you got to keep your wits about you as you're going in and out of those. Now I can butt a little tile, lighter tile, right up next to those sharp edges on some of these to get a little bit extra pop, and also make them crisper, because some of them might have gotten a little soft while I was not carelessly. I wasn't carelessly at all, but as I was moving around fairly quickly, softening those edges. Occasionally your brush will slip and shoot through and pick up a lower end that should have been a hard, and now you've kind of blown that little area. And it's not that it hurts it that much, but it can, again, depending on the level of finesse that we desire, you know, I could spend an hour on that head, literally, given the time and the interest, and if it was, you know, I was challenging myself to just do a really beautiful job on it or something, I mean, like ridiculously good, I would sit there and just hyper obsess with tiny little brushes down into the nooks and crannies, getting reflected light, getting all these effects, you know, that I see, and really struggling for them. Now I'm gonna do a little bit more on the hair, and then I'm gonna venture back down into the hot spots on the body. I got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make it count. So I'll continue around here, and this is probably the reason I'm continuing around the hair, because I doubt I'll get back to it again. Sometimes you just have a feeling, you know, that it's just, you're not going to get back there, and so you want to really fight to get it to some level that isn't going to hurt the painting at the end. Okay, that's good for now. Boy, it really kicks up over here. That's wild. Looks odd. Looks like that in the photo though. But again, I have to ask myself, it doesn't matter if it looks like that in the photo, does it look right? Because the viewer doesn't get to see the photo. So I think we're going to leave it for now. I'm going to go over and put a little bridge lighter tile over here to help jump that gap. And then I'm going to kind of reaffirm, you know, a little lighter passage right there that helps link that together a little bit visually. That jump is not so great now, and it doesn't look as goofy, popping that arm that much. You just got to watch those things. Ask yourself. Just because you see it in the photo doesn't mean you got to do it. Sometimes those things fascinate me. I kind of was fascinated by how bright that arm is. the brightest part of the painting, or the picture almost, is right here. Very odd place to put the center of interest, even in a cast. A little bit more acceptable in a cast than it would be in an actual person, but interesting nonetheless. Got enough paint buildup to where I can literally cut and carve with the paint pretty easily now. There's a sweet spot when the paint, in all mediums, there's a sweet spot when you get just the right amount of paint on there that you can just, the painting starts to really respond very well. It's kind of the sweet spot of the medium. So I'm just gonna, looking for the hot spots on the body. So I'm down here around the butt now, trying to get a little bit of flow with my highlights and hot spots. Again, you've got this bump, this bump, this bump, this bump. I mean, there's a lot of activity around the medius and the maximus. And there's a little, again, bone running through there, the iliac crest bone and the oblique muscles running on top of that. So it's a delicate little area. You just got to give it some love and really respect it. All these areas deserve a lot of respect. I mean, there's no area on the body that should be neglected. Every little nuance should be sought. You should seek understanding and insight into it while you design it, and try to put your best foot forward always. Just have fun. When all's said and done, have fun. You're not going to, if it doesn't come out great, it's not like you killed somebody. I mean, it's not, it's not surgery, it's just, you're just trying to learn to paint and cut yourself some slack and don't be such a perfectionist, Learn to accept the tear down, build up process. Now I'm going to go back up. And I'm just looking for edges right now that need to be finessed as we get about 5 minutes left before I wrap this one up. Oh man, we got so many fun lessons ahead. So much to look forward to. It's going to be fantastic. Invention and all kinds of wonderful specialty stuff. We haven't even touched on the really fun stuff. Right now, I mean, this is fun to me. I'm very nostalgic for me to go back and get to do these. It reminds me of being back in school. It reminds me of my student years. It's just a pleasure to revisit these disciplines. But when we get into the really, really, really advanced stuff, the picture making, the advanced figure invention and memorization, and there's such a slew of things I'm looking forward to trying to bring to the table. Inking and brush inking and quill inking, and I mean, God, I could go on and on and on. And all of them are hopefully you're gonna fall in love with a lot of them. They're really wonderful styles and methods to learn how to become better painters with. And ultimately, almost everything I do is with that goal in mind. Whether it's inking, whether it's invention, it's to become a better painter. That's my ultimate goal. Even though in the process of doing it, I've fallen in love with some of these mediums and techniques, and they're very dear to my heart now. They weren't intended to be that in the beginning. They were just things that were stepping stones towards more proficient painting. And sometimes you'll surprise yourself. And so think broadly, not narrow, and think outside the box and train outside the box. Just like good athletes. Yeah, slightly whimsical feel to this one. I like it a lot. A little different than, you know, that's the thing is, you know, when you're painting for a long time, I mean, like long hours and stuff, your moods change, your perceptions change. So you're constantly skirting along, and formulaic again is not my mode of operation really. It's more about dynamic learning and staying present and letting yourself ebb and flow in and out of these interesting little passages of recollections of different people you've enjoyed and like, and channeling them, so to speak, you know, and getting a chance to kind of, you know, kind of get inside their head a little bit in your painting. It's interesting. Oh, let's see, about 3 minutes left. What do I want to do? My hand feels like it's broken right now, so I'm kind of, I mean, it just really needs to be stretched, iced or something, I don't know. Yeah, it happens. I don't worry too much about my hands. I mean, they get, it's like guitar players and stuff. I mean, your tendons can take a lot of abuse, and unless you're doing, that's another argument for cross-training, is that it just prevents injury because you're using your hands in so many intricate manners. If you only do one thing, work on a computer all day, every day, the chance of you getting carpal tunnel or something like that is a lot greater. When you're using different mediums, they're taxing the tendons from different angles, different ways, and it prevents those kind of repetitive stress injuries, which are so common when you're doing such repetitive things. I need to go along that one side, the inside of that sharp edge, and soften it. Just notice that. I'll go down here too and just do a little. Soften that a little bit, but I don't like that electric blue, neon blue down there. So let's just kind of feather it back the other way a little bit and let that transition be a little more subtle. Down in here as well, let's kind of blow out that edge. Let's start here and drag that edge through so it creates a lost edge. And then let's quiet down this noise at the bottom too, which is kind of starting to be a little annoying, and we don't want anything down at the bottom of this piece causing undue attention, I don't think. So we want to just kind of, you know, we want this bottom just to be very ethereal and non-obnoxious. I like some of this dry brush underpainting coming through. It's a little, keeps it looking like a study, which is what it is. And I don't want to, you know, buff it out and make it look all pretty. I want it to be kind of gritty and yeah, I got about a minute left. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's, you know, there's not a lot left that I want to do. I mean, there's little things. I mean, I get hyper obsessed about everything, but I think overall, it's down to the little nitty gritty on this one. Okay, so stay in the paint. Really dig deep on these guys. Take your time. Maybe take a couple weeks in this phase. I don't know, a month. Might take a month to get through all 10 lessons. I would do one a week, you know, probably. You know, just at evening, you know, 1 or 2 a week, depending on if you got some life classes you're going to and stuff, factor that in. And basically just continue working through these systematically and make a routine out of it. And look online for some more cast examples. There's a couple good books out there on Bernini. I've got one black and white book. It's a really large format that's just beautiful, and it has so many great close-ups of his work. And you could do tons of these kind of monochrome studies from something like that. You could, you know, spend a month or two just studying Bernini in monochrome. It would be a really great way to design anatomy, study just different things, you know, procedural things. So it's all the springboard. This is just so much for you guys to build off of. That this is just going to be the tip of the iceberg for you. But it'll give you the template that'll get you to where you need to go and where you want to go. And that I'm 100% confident of. All right, so it was nice working with you, and let's get you busy doing your own version of this, and then we'll see you soon.